Hi, good morning, everybody. We'll just give a couple of minutes for people to join in, and after that, we can start our conversation. Yeah, I think we have a lot of people joining, but thank you all for joining us and really appreciate your taking your time off. And we are excited about a great panel and a great topic for the discussion, for today's discussion. Maybe while people are joining, if others who have joined, if you can use your, chat to just maybe quickly share your name, your organization, your role. So, it will be good to hear if you are already in product management. So happy to hear some introductions.
Yeah, it might also help if people can tell us, what they would want to take away from this particular conversation. Like,
Right,
what are
right.
their
Absolutely.
expectations?
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Hadley from CDK Global. Hi, good morning. So as we wait for more people to join in, let me introduce myself. My name is Shruti Mishra. I am with NASSCOM, and I'm driving all the GCC initiatives and the agenda for the growth of the GCCs. So I think we have some more people coming in. And I think we are 3 minutes in, and we have obviously continuously people joining, but let's respect the time of the leaders and people who are here. And thank you once again, everybody, for joining us. So I'm going to give you a small context about the topic. So the GCC ecosystem has been flourishing in India, and it's been doing some, absolutely fantastic, great work. So today we have more than 1600 plus unique GCCs. Many of them do extremely high-end work. Some of them are really at the transformation edge. And there is a lot of excitement about the opportunity that, the segment, the present, not just for the GCC, but for product and platform are going to be a way forward. So also product management is going to be a key skills and an enabler to help us grab the opportunity and make the best fit there. Of course, there is a lot of buzz around product management. There is a lot of, conversation around product management, what we wanted to do through this. And for NASSCOM, been a super important topic for us. So we have a very strong product community, and what we wanted to do is bring those conversation more to our GCC community. So now we already did 3 product webinar with the topic was like what really product management is, how should you think about a career in product management, what are those skills, so what is product management not. So this is the 4th webinar in the series of product management, and we are going to discuss about the topic which is product management strategies for globally distributed teams. Now we have a wonderful set of panelists, very experienced. They come from the diverse background and the diverse industry segment. So we have Arti Gopalan, Director Product Management from SAP Labs, Joy Mukherjee, Director of Product Management from Walmart, Kamal Singh, Senior Director from Visa, Abhijeet Joshi, Director Product Management from Rakuten India, and the panel is going to be moderated by Vigneshwar and Umapati, Program Manager from Bosch Global Software. So I'm going to first invite Vigneshwaran to introduce himself and kickstart the conversation. And last thing, just wanted to tell the audience here, please use the chat, use the Q&A tab to make it, interactive session. Thank you again, and over to you, Vigneshwaran.
Thank you, Shruti. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Vignesh. I have overall 20 years of experience in IT industry, worked with various companies, including startups, service companies to large product-based organizations. Right. So currently I'm with Bosch working as a project manager, overseeing multiple projects in the healthcare domain. Some of my responsibilities include bringing alignment with various product teams, coming up with product strategy, monitoring overall program performance, ensuring compliance, and collaborating with the cross-functional teams like marketing, sales, and other departments to meet the requirements. Right, this is a short intro about myself. I would also ask the panel members here to introduce about themselves. Uh, We'll start with Abhijeet.
Thank you, Vignesh. Hello, everyone. My name is Abhijeet Joshi. As mentioned, I work as a product director with Rakuten, focusing on the data and the cloud platforms. Overall, I have close to 18 years of experience in the enterprise SaaS space, covering product management, engineering, and customer success. Majority of my work in the data and AI space has been focused on platforms more than applications. And across my career, I've spent, I would say, an equal amount of time across large enterprises and startups. And of course, had the good fortune of working with stakeholders across US, Europe, and APAC. As you can imagine, this has given me a fair share of my experience working in a globally distributed product team. And of course, today, really look forward to sharing whatever I've learned and really look forward to learning from all of you as well. So thank you for having me here.
Thanks, Abhijeet. Can we move on to Joy?
Thanks, Vignesh. Hello, everyone. This is Joy. I'm product director in Walmart International. I have 2 decades plus experience both in software engineering, engineering manager, architect, and close to a decade in the product management space. In Walmart, I have led products right from the product discovery, like search personalization, to cart checkout, and currently in the fulfillment space. Prior to joining Walmart, I was with PayPal for 10 plus years, where I was leading a payment product, global payment product from India, and had grown it 40% year over year in continuous 3 years. And I am looking forward to this wonderful discussions and sharing my perspective and also learn from my fellow panelists. Thank you.
Thanks, Joy. Can we go ahead with Guru?
Thanks, Vignesh. So the name is Kamal Singh Badal. You can just call me Gur, to be easy. I work as a senior director with Visa. I'm part of their global data office slash data and AI platform organization. So think of it in terms of a product portfolio that spans everything from the point that transactions happen, right? And you get a set of data to every downstream application, including AI systems, analytics, data marts, real-time streaming systems, all that jazz. Right? So a whole set of those particular applications fall within my product portfolio, and it's like a cradle to grave ownership. Right? So that's Visa, but overall, I've got 25 odd years of experience, and it spans very large companies, like for example, Visa being one of them, and then HSBC, SAP, Ariba, HP, Lehman Brothers. I've also worked with a whole set of startups where I've typically joined as one of the first 5 people joining that company, and then I've grown it from strength to strength. Right, and it's not always been just product management. It's usually been a mix of development, product management, operations. In fact, I've led entire companies at times. Right? So I kind of bring a flavor of pretty much everything. And it's great to be part of this particular NASCOM session, right? Looking forward to learning together. That's me in brief.
Thank you, Guru. And finally to Arti.
Thank you, Vigneshwaran. Hello, everybody. I'm Arti Gopalan. I've been product manager with SAP for over a decade now. It's been 18 years journey across the technology space itself. I am part of a global product management team at SAP for a platform offering of ours, where I am specifically focusing on an integration layer, integration platform as a service layer. So very clearly, it is a platform product, right? And I have been associated with it for the past 8 years, specifically in this particular portfolio. It is, and as part of this role, I have spanned through, product strategy, working with partners, building and launching products, right? Go-to-market strategies. I have worked with our product marketing colleagues, the sales, the field, right? So the whole 360 degrees has been something that I have been focusing on. I'm currently leading a team of product managers and subject matter experts, and I focus primarily on making sure that strategic topics with growth in mind is something that I am contributing as an individual. Looking forward to this discussion with esteemed set of panelists. Definitely looking forward to how the discussion goes and the engagement as part of this NASCOM engagement. Thank you.
Thanks, Arti. Okay, I would like to thank Shruti again and all the panel members for the introduction. I think we can now directly start jumping into the discussion about today's topic. right? Product management strategies for globally distributed teams. Right? For me, managing a globally distributed product team involves bringing the efforts across various time zones, cultures, which could help enhance innovation, and then by bringing diverse perspectives to the table. Right? This setup allows access to wide talent pool across the world, and this would foster creativity through the different cultural viewpoints and through different problem-solving approaches. However, it also comes up with challenges, right? It requires effective communication alignment strategies. You'll have to utilize the right set of tools. You'll have to manage the time zone differences and also build a strong team culture to increase the productivity and engagement, despite people are located at different geographies. Right? So we would touch upon each of these points today. I would like to bring these points to the table, understand the views from the different panel members here. Right. So I would start this discussion with one of my favorite topics. It's innovation. We all know that innovation is essential for all the organizations to remain competitive, relevant, and to be successful in today's ever-changing business environment. Like any other companies, right? Like any other native companies, GCCs also have specific focuses on innovation. And there are many GCC companies out there here in India, which is dedicated only for the R&Ds, right? So innovation is that important. And in my view, GCCs have an edge when it comes to innovation just because they have a strategic alignment with the corporate goals, and so they get a direct leadership support, right, which can help in getting extensive funding for innovation and other topics related to this. They would also have access to global talent that brings diverse expertise and perspectives that could foster innovation. And I think lastly, they could also innovate by adapting and localizing products that they have already built to meet specific needs of the local markets, right? So with this, I would like to also take this discussion and hear the views of members here, right? So I'll start with Joy. Maybe Joy, if you could explain your experience about the global product innovation within your organization, and if you could share some nuances about the industry that you work and what kind of products that you build.
Yeah, thanks, Vignesh. Yeah, I think for me, right, everything starts with the customer and ends with the customer, because ultimately what we are building is to be used by the customer. So basically, it starts with understanding the pain points and the needs of the customer for various markets. But for a global capability centers like Walmart, right, the big advantage is to be able to build the capabilities once and then roll it out to different markets. For example, let's take in an e-commerce or an omni-commerce context, right? When a capability like an express delivery or pick up at store is developed for one market, then the learnings and the core capabilities or the core construct of it can be easily extended to the markets, other markets, right? For example, when you pick up at store, you basically want your store associate to know when the customer is kind of driving towards the store to pick up their online orders, and so that they can be ready to hand over the parcel or the shipment to the customer when they come to the curbside or when they come to the store. Now, this is the core construct, right? So this kind of core capability, when you build for one market, you can actually extend it to other market. But but the flip side of it is, due to different state of maturity of the market, right? So it is always not, it might not fit as is for that market. So you need to be flexible to basically modify it or customize it based on that market or based on the current state of your product in that market. And as I said, again, the important aspect is the customer is at the center of everything. So having a close collaboration with the design team, with the customer research team, to kind of do a complete customer research, to understand their behavior, to understand their needs, and to understand why they will do this, right? Uh, uh, will actually give more insights to be able to build something which is usable and which is liked or which is a delight to the customer. So that's one aspect of it. Now there is another aspect of it. Now sometimes there are certain capabilities which are required for a particular market. So you build it only for that particular market, and then you don't extend it others. For example, let's me take an example for an international market, because I lead for various international markets. So in Mexico, for example, pay at store for online orders or pay at delivery is a very common construct, and many people do that for various cultural reasons. Now, that capability is something which is very unique to that market. It does not scale back to, let's say, Canada, US, or other markets. So maybe, yeah, you build it for that market and then see if there are other emerging markets which kind of need that, then you extend it. In conclusion, right, I mean, there is a lot of advantage of building a capability once and scaling it to other markets. But at the same time, right, it is also important to learn and understand the uniqueness of the customer into that market to establish yourself and grow. There has to be a connect with the customer, and this and but building once kind of helps in avoiding the duplication of work and also maintaining lean teams. But focus on customer, focus on the market, focus on the uniqueness of the market, focus on the needs and the pain points of the customer, and then basically innovation complements your product.
Thanks, Joy. So, Arti, do you have a different perspective or do you agree with what Joy had said just now?
No, I mean, definitely aligns with what Joy has said. So in SAP, right, the construct is slightly different. We cater to business. And so what I as a product manager do is slightly different from what Joy just shared, right? So we try to make the product, the platform offering that I was saying, as generic as possible by identifying global pain points. So we do not cater to specific local market as much as we make sure that the platform is applicable and available for everybody in a flexible manner. So that is our focus, right? And how we do that is slightly different as well. So what we do is, again, like Walmart, like what Joy said, SAP is a large organization. We have multiple data channels. We have extremely diverse data channels as well. So the pain point or the challenge I as a PM have to do is churn through all these data, correlate them in such a way that can I map it back to the user groups, to the target personas that we have already identified, right? That is one thing. Identify the global pain points that are happening. At the same time, I should also be conscious that there are local regulations that are going to apply to these global customer base, right? And this is where a product decision will have to be taken much more on are we considering the features that allow, for example, data to be stored in a specific location or offer regional backups that are necessary from a regulatory point of view for that particular customer in a specific market unit, right? We need to consider, should I invest in a local cloud infrastructure, right? Or go for a much more robust and scalable global cloud infrastructure that is going to cater to multiple market units, right? And that, because that means cost versus performance and lower latency, right? So these are decisions that we have to take based on the data that we are receiving on the presence of the customers or the growth opportunity that we are seeing from a customer point of view, right? Then we also need to think about, for example, one of the choices that we have made right now, even though we started with a cloud first strategy and we have a very strong cloud offering, is that our customers, based on these local regulations, based on their data security concerns and internal, enterprise or industry specific regulatory restrictions, want to run some of their, or rather keep some of their data inside their organization itself. And how do we enable this is we are focusing now and investing on a local runtime of our existing integration platform itself, right? Which is considerable investment, because we need to make sure the viability of investment versus the customer satisfaction and the user experience that they are hoping for is being met, right? And this is a decision and a point that comes in with a couple of information, right? So one, uh, how we involve ourselves by strategically discussing these with our customers, right? So as part of the innovation process, when we identify here is a gap or here is an expectation, we reach out to our strategic customers, we reach out to our high touch engagement customers, we reach out to our customer advisory board, which is also very important for every organization, right? A very core set of advisors who are sitting, who are providing the market perspective, the industry perspectives, as well as the global perspective. Partners are also another crucial element that we bring in. We talk to the partners, see exactly where is the potential need, and is the partner as a complementary offering able to support it, or should we invest on it, right? Based on what they are observing as a distribution channel for us or implementers for us. And the third pillar where we refer to is also the community of users across the globe, right? The community advocates are also going to provide us insights on market behaviors, the shifts that we are observing across our customer usage, consumption of the platform. And these are things that also helps me as a product manager to say, where is the innovation? Which should I prioritize more? And should I focus on the global pain point that is going to address many customers versus a local pain point that is going to establish myself stronger with a market presence for a specific industry or a specific a country, which is also the question. So that is how at least SAP journey goes for me. Vigneswaran, over to you.
Thanks, Arti. So I would go to Abhijeet next. Do you have any other additional views than what Joy and Arti had mentioned?
Sure. I think I'd like to add a supporting viewpoint, right? So I think one thing that we are doing uh, on the Rakuten side is obviously building a lot of data-enabled products, right? And the biggest challenge that we've seen in terms of data-driven decision making is not really the access to data anymore, because I think getting data in a single place is very easy these days. But what is a challenge is the entire quality and the reliability of the data, right? So as Arti and Joy were saying, clearly they are also making a lot of data-based decisions, and as they expand into other countries, newer areas, there could be existing customer base, on which they base their insights on. Now, if a decision maker is taking like a product decision or an innovation decision based on, existing data, and if the data is not 100% reliable, or if it is not enough, or there is not enough reliable data, let me put it that way, then it just compromises the entire decision making cycle right now. Then that entire dream of, data, being the new oil, etc., gets severely compromised. So what we are doing is, to really facilitate this, global innovation that we're talking about. The the root of it is, in my mind, the data. As an existing large organization, there's already a lot of data to learn from. There's of course, data coming in from the ground in terms of, market research, etc. How do we get all of that together and really ease the process of decision making, so that the product managers are not spending a lot of time crunching data. They are focusing on the insights, they're focusing on strategies for launch, they are focusing on what's the right kind of product to be built, and so on. So I think that's really a key aspect that is a challenge that needs to be addressed at an innovation, for facilitating innovation at a global product level. So those are my that's my quick addition to what we're discussing about.
Thanks, Abhijeet. So, Gur, would you like to have any final say on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, people have probably articulated some of the things that I was definitely thinking about. But there are some nuances that may be different, right? One of the things that, for example, Aarti said was, we talk to partners, we think locally, and then we are also looking at it from the perspective global. Uh, Earlier a lot of thinking was that because you're developing a global product, think globally, and then we'll roll it out across. I think in the visa context, one of the things that has changed is, given the fact that we are working in so many different regions, a lot of innovations actually come from regions, right? So innovations may be happening there, but we are still always thinking how to take these global, right? And we work very closely with our partners for literally in a co-creation mode, because they're the ones who are feeling the pain and who know that particular geography and their customers. We may not, right? But the co-creation then really brings in the best of both worlds equal in. And while we are doing that co-creation, and it will be done for maybe a specific region in the world,
we're still looking at how to apply that globally, because some of those pain points may actually be global. The nuances may be different, right? So you innovate in one particular area, you learn from that, then you roll it out in the other areas, and you cater to the necessities, right? One other thing, and this is what we found from a visa perspective, is as you go bigger, as you go more global, you start shifting your thought process from being a product to then being a platform, and then finally to an ecosystem. So when we talk about payments, we don't talk about payment products. We talk about the payments ecosystem and then how to make that bigger, right? We talk about how to bring in more partners into that particular ecosystem. Uh, we literally talk about assimilating the competition, so to say, right? And increasing the pie for everybody. So that's one of the strategic mind shifts that actually happens if you're growing very, very large, right? From an innovation perspective, product to platform to ecosystem.
Thanks, Guru. I think we heard very interesting views, right? Overall, but I think everybody spoke about customer. Customer is a key for the innovation, right? So with this, I would like to also move to a next topic. Right now, we assume that every organization has very good innovation culture that generates very good ideas, right? Their focus would obviously be to build a product out of it, right, and take it to market. They would start thinking about market introduction, growth, maturity, etc., and all that. I have seen many product managers focusing first doing very in-depth market research to understand user needs, behaviors, and then come up with strategy to go to market. Like for example, some companies prefer to go with partnerships, some would go region-wise, right? And then we would discuss some aspects related to this. So I'll maybe start with Abhijeet now. What do you think, Abhijeet? What do you think are the key factors for successfully launching products and driving their adoption and growth?
Sure, thanks. So I think what I've seen is generally companies do a great job of launching products, right? I think, as you say, a lot of market research goes into it. There's like a lot of GTM planning, marketing channels get opened up. So I think the entire aspect of launching products is something that has seen a lot of attention, and I think generally have people have a lot of better handle of. But what I've seen is, the next aspect, which is the adoption and the growth, is something that I'd just like to kind of talk about a little more, right? Because once we have the product market fit, uh, what we need to quite actively move towards is something what I call as a customer solution fit, right? Because we have a product, like of course all of it starts with the technology, right? I mean, the technology enables a product. We are in the tech business, but then what matters to a customer is the product doesn't matter to the customer. What matters is the solution, right? I have a product in the market, but what exactly is the problem that it is solving for me? How urgent is that problem? How much money am I willing to pay for this particular solution? So I think that is an extremely key aspect that really makes the difference between the long-term adoption and the initial sign-up, because the initial sign-up can definitely happen based on marketing demos. Maybe there are some POCs that are done and so on and so forth. But clearly, the long-term adoption cannot happen unless and until there's a solution that you hit with the product that you're going to market with. And of course, in a global setup, this becomes that much more difficult because the aspect or the perspective around the solution would be very different from, let's say, when you move from Asia to Europe to North America. And of course, even more nuance as you move towards individual countries and so on. So I think that aspect of customer solution fit is something that product managers need to kind of start focusing on an ongoing basis to really drive adoption and retain adoption, which is kind of the next point in my mind around customer retention, right? So tracking usage frequency. Of course, there are a lot of metrics that are out there that we need to be tracking around existing customers, and especially in a SaaS setup, these metrics are a great indicator of whether a customer will renew the contract or not. And of course, we talk about ARR, talk about SaaS base, all the benefits that are there. But of course, from a product manager point of view, the dreaded conversation is always a renewal conversation, right? And if we are, as a product manager, getting a lot of surprises during that conversation in terms of this is not working well, or the on the ground feedback is not good, then I don't think we are doing a great job as a product manager, right? So during the course of an engagement with a customer, there has to be a laser sharp focus on, usage metrics, feedback channels, so that we are continuously understanding where the pain points are, and trying to address those, so that come the renewal conversation, it's not an uncomfortable conversation, because as we all know, retaining a customer is 10 times, if not more, easier than going after a new customer. And last point around adoption and growth is, again, once a company has a PMF, going from 0 to 1 is, and again, this is also, of course, on a relative scale, right? I mean, companies do go from 0 to 1, and that 0 to 1 momentum carries forward to 1 to 10. But what I've seen, and honestly, individually, I've also struggled with, is that growth from 10 to 100, because clearly no one wants to kind of stop at 10, right? I mean, they want to continue going from strength to strength, add more customers, expand to more geographies, and so on. And that is where I think the focus of the company shifts from being this very small agile organization to being a little more mature, a little more structured. And of course, a lot of processes start coming in, right? Sales teams start getting created, marketing teams start getting created, we have processes being created, and so on and so forth. Of course, all of these are necessary to kind of put some structure and order in the chaos that is there. But in my opinion, things start kind of slowing down, right? And of course, the answer is not really more process, because implementing or having processes has definitely it follows the laws of diminishing returns. So while getting from 1 to 10, you may go from 10 to 20, you may stall at 20, right? And you may go to 25, come back to 20. And this is something that I've personally gone through. So I think what the point that I'm trying to arrive at is, in terms of the product managers, they need to be really be in control of the situation, sales team, marketing team, etc. How do we ensure that this growth doesn't stall? How do we ensure that all the good work that has gone from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, kind of gets capitalized on, and we are able to scale up? And I think that's why it's really important to learn from organizations that have scaled up very well and scaled up very fast right now. In the data domain, for example, Databricks is a great example, right? I mean, they've literally exploded, the kind of growth that they have now. I'm sure internally they would have faced a lot of friction, a lot of challenges, but of course they continue to power through. And of course there will be a lot of other examples. But I think what product managers can definitely do is try to study this growth model, try to master the scale, because I think we as product managers are of course responsible for 0 to 1 and 1 to 10. But the bang for the buck really happens when 10 to 100 happens. And that's when a small product company becomes like a large enterprise. And you then cater to an ecosystem, as Guru was talking about, right? Then only you have the muscle to kind of create a strong partner ecosystem, really go after an overall ecosystem and attack a wider set of problems than what you started off with. So I think the focus of my answer was on adoption and growth. But yeah, I think it's somehow kind of left out in the discussion topics. There's a lot of focus on launch and new ideas and innovation. But I think sustaining and selling innovation is an important aspect for success for a company.
Agreed, Abhijeet, and thank you for your points. Um, Joy, I think you have unmuted. Maybe I'll go with you next. Do you have a different viewpoints, or do you have something
No,
on
I
top?
just want to take the discussion forward with Abhijit said, right? I think, yeah, once you have launched it, it is important. And I agree that once you have launched it, it's important to, how do you get the adoption and growth, right? And again, it depends on the stage of the product in the market you are in, right? If it is in early stage, what you have to focus on, how to get more customers to use your product, right? Let me take an e-commerce context, right, so that I can make it very easy to understand. In an e-commerce context, it is about increasing the traffic at the top of the funnel, which means that you need more customers to come to your website or the app, right? And which means that your focus should be on the marketing, right? Marketing spend. How do you spend marketing to focus on the right customer segments, to have them come to your website and kind of experience it, right? It also means that you need to focus on your SEO strategies, search engine optimization strategies, so that you are able to get that new customers to come to your website, experience the website, and kind of go through it, right? Now, okay, now you got your customers. The next part of it is converting them to the purchase, right? there the customer journey plays very important. So you have different strategies for different aspects, right? Now, if you have to convert a customer from a explorer or a browser to a purchaser, then you need to bring various aspects to it. You need to have a very seamless customer experience where they can find or discover products easily. You need to focus on your search, personalizations, etc. You need to focus on pricing. Pricing is always a complicated subject, but pricing is very important. And then the next step is the cart and checkout experience, right? How what products you are adding to your cart, how easy your checkout experience, how easy is your payment conversion. And the most important aspect is the fulfillment. Now you tell a customer, you promise them, I will deliver your shipment today or tomorrow or day after tomorrow or whatever, right? And then you have to keep that promise, because that will build the trust. Then the customer will trust you and they will come to you. So again, during early phases, I think the people focus more on getting live traffic to their website and making sure that they're able to convert them to a purchase, right? But what will you do once you have done all that basic, right? You have grown up, you have gone to the stage where you are getting good customer, like good traffic. You're optimizing your website, you are fixing things, and you're by kind of making a customer journey good. Then you have to start giving value back to the customer, right? So that your customers, then you get more value out of the same customers. The same customer keeps coming back, doing the purchase again and again, right? Again, there could be various strategies for it, because it could be like, okay, you have a excellent delivery promise, your products are always good, or you have an excellent return policy. Or for example, in Walmart US, you have something called delivery pass, right? Where you give one-time payment, and then all your shipments are free every time, right? So that's kind of motivates the customer. Okay, with everyday low prices I am getting in Walmart, I'm also getting a shipment free, and it's a convenience for me. So that's where, yeah, the what is the hook for the customer is very important. And also it is important on which stage you are in the market, where you should focus on to be able to provide the right kind of focus to grow. uh, I mean, again, in case where somewhere your discovery itself is not good, right? Then you need to focus on your add to cart metrics. You need to focus, launch new capabilities with your search and personalization, so that more and more customers are able to easily come, convert, get to add to cart, and able to convert them. In case your fulfillment metrics, which is that on-time delivery or promise accuracies are to be improved, then you focus on warehouse management system, your last mile delivery systems, and all. So e-commerce is a very complex kind of an ecosystem, but it's important to know where the hooks are, where you are doing well, where you're not doing well, and what can you focus, and how metrics can help you drive those gaps or differences. In the end, like, yeah, that's where it is. And ultimately, once you are done doing all those, what is the additional value the customer is getting from you, right? So that's pretty much kind of my take on this subject.
Thanks, Jai. I think Arti might have an additional viewpoint with respect to B2B business, right?
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Again aligned with what Abhijit and Joy said, right? It depends. The launch is very important. It is also important whether you are customer centric or not. And I can absolutely relate when you say, Joy, about e-commerce and how diverse it is and how complex it is to keep the user experience in mind. Just to add to that, right? And I hear it in both your statements, right? The focus is always the business goal, whether it is creation of an anticipation, creation of an awareness from a launch point of view, right, in the user base, or is it growth or retention in a much more mature product? And I also come from a mature and a stable product which has been established for a decade now in the industry, right? So in my case, the focus is much more on growth, retention, as well as making sure that the innovations that we have been investing on is creating a lot of anticipation, because you do not want customers to, assume that, yeah, this particular product works with these are the benefits it is going to give me, these are the value it is going to generate for my organization, and that's it, right? That is not where you want to be. You want to move it to the next level. Always you want to make it much more, what do you say, a kind of aspirational value, right, for the users, that hey, I am working with this so and so platform product is something that they should be proudly calling out. And that is where, as a product manager, my investments goes. And the second aspect is also going back to where we started from, right? Do you understand the market specific maturity, right? For example, um, our market in North America may be much more mature. We may have a strong customer base and influencers in the North America market or the European market when compared to the APJ market. And in which case, I'm just taking it as an example, right? It may be completely the opposite way. And I can also mention about that if I have more time. But right, the question becomes that in that location that you have selected, where you are seeing a specific product maturity or an understanding, how do you then focus on the business goals that you have established at a global level, and then how do you work towards it as a product manager? Maybe it is working with the field, maybe it is working with the marketing, maybe it is onboarding more multipliers and community champions, right? Or it is about directly working with the customers and making sure that impact is being felt, right? Now, for all of this, as I said, business goal is very important. And what it also means is, as a product manager, have I defined my success metrics in such a way that I am aiming towards the business goal overall, right? And have I made this communication also very transparent to all the stakeholders in who are surrounding me to make this effective? Otherwise, we will be working on slides and pie charts in our own corner, but not being effective. So that is also another thing, another viewpoint that I would like to add.
Thanks, Arti. Gur, again, I'll end up with you for this topic. What are your views on this?
So I'll bring some complementarity to whatever has already been said, right? And I'll give it more in the context of B2B and very large enterprises. Like, for example, I've been part of SAP Ariba, part of SAP, and then Visa now. One of the things that happens within very large enterprises is, there's a very large value that they have to protect. So you've got to be very finicky about, your core systems. You cannot really, mess around with them. You can innovate faster on the edges, correct? But then that also means that, they have to integrate back into your broader, central systems. This is one of the things which is very important, because think of it. You create an innovation, maybe you've created an innovation in, say, a particular country. And given, say, an SAP context, you take it and you show it in a Sapphire conference, right, where there are 20,000 salespeople who have converged to figure out what is it that they can market. And then they can, take it to the entire world if you can, right? But you have to then look at how it can piggyback on the existing system. If it can provide a complementary service, and that value proposition is very clear from, both a value as well as a marketing standpoint, it becomes very easy for the salespeople to sell it, right? So you have to look at it from that context as well, right? Obviously, you have to create value. You have to work with customers. All that is already there, but you have to look at how it works with your ecosystem or with your existing systems. And finally, if you really look at the B2B context, if you're going to different regions where you don't really have a presence, you need to look at targeting, say, one very large bellwether client. Like if SAP does not have a presence, say, in Southeast Asia in a particular market, they would target one large customer and do a really, really good job. Because customers on the B2B side, right, they talk to each other. one bellwether client goes for your product, you can have a domino effect on the other cases, right? Those are some very key things that you should also think about in the B2B context and in the enterprise context, right? So complementary things, not necessarily anything that people have already said.
Thank you, Gaur. So next, I would like to touch, one more important topic in this global product context, which I think Arti had touched briefly while discussing about innovation. Right, we'll have to discuss about regulation and compliance. Just because you have a very good product, you identified the market, right, and you have a very good strategy to go to market, but until you don't focus or give enough attention for regulation and compliance, all the efforts that you have put so far would be waste, right? Because regulations have significant impact on the global product development and deployment, particularly in highly regulated industries like healthcare and finance. I particularly come from healthcare, so I know we will have to ensure that even during the product design stage, every aspect of the design has to meet the specific regulatory standards. It's that important. For instance, when we develop softwares or hardwares for the healthcare industry, we'll have to comply with FDA when we'll have to launch this to United States, or we'll have to mark the CE marketing requirements when we take this to the European Union, right? And again, getting approvals from the regulatory bodies are not an easy task. It's going to be the lengthy and complex task, which will involve multiple stages of review and approval. Right on top of it, it can also have very significant impact on how and where a product can be sold. Right. So I would like to take this topic to Gur. For a change, he can start sharing his experience on this topic, particularly on the payments domain, right, which will have a significant impact on the regulations and compliance.
Thanks, Vignesh. So yeah, I mean, payments or banks, very, very highly regulated, and uh, it's a boon and a bane, right? In different senses. A boon because it's like a moat. People cannot really enter into that unless they've you know got the licenses or complied with the regulations. So that way, less competition at times. But a bane because now you've got to comply with all the regulations, right, in every different geographies, and these may be very, very different. And as you said, right, this is something which is non-negotiable. To do business in a particular country or a geography, you have to comply with the rules and regulations. Otherwise, one, you'll not be able to operate, or in between, your businesses will be asked to cease operations until you comply. Right? We've seen some of those particular cases happen with an Indian context as well. Right? The RBI came out with regulations with regard to localization of data, right, which basically means that transactions which are happening domestically, those should not really go outside of the bounds of the country, right? And in fact, they need to be processed within the country. All the infrastructure that is required for that to happen has to be provisioned within that particular country, and all that jazz, right? Very profound implications, both from the perspective of how you architect that particular solution to how what are the economics of that particular solution, and how you basically even aggregate things. Like, for example, data, if that cannot leave the bounds of a country, how do you get, aggregates at a global level, right? What do you aggregate? And as I said, it's a cost of doing business. So you have to take that particular decision in a very informed manner, right? If you have a large investment in that particular region to protect, you should put in that investment, right? To create those systems. Like Visa did that in compliance with the RBI regulations. Mastercard probably didn't do it within time. They were asked to cease, issuing cards for a certain period of time. In more recent times, Paytm Payments Bank, right? It was asked to cease operation for a certain period of time for certain kind of transactions. Like, for example, I was impacted. I had a fast tag which was issued by Paytm, and I could not recharge it. So I shifted providers. Big business loss for Paytm Payments Bank, right? And it's sometimes irreparable. So you have to comply with the laws and regulations of a particular geography wherever you're operating, right? That's a given. Now, then it comes to a question of cost, right? In case of Visa, when we wanted to comply with the India data localization requirements, we set up our own data centers in India, 2 data centers, right? We put up the entire infrastructure, provisioned all the applications, made sure all the transactions landed here, and then data interchange that needed to happen to the extent that it could happen with across boundaries. But then that's because we do a lot of business in India. What about a country like, for example, Kenya? If Kenya comes up with this particular requirement, can you actually do the same there? The answer is probably no. I mean, setting up 2 data centers in a particular region, very expensive. Then, as Arti was mentioning, right, what do? Maybe you use a cloud provider, right? That is something that informs your, say, data strategy or your product strategy and cloud strategy, etc. So you could use a cloud provider and provision your applications within that. Or if you don't even want to do that, maybe use a local partner for doing that, right? So your product strategy is informed by these legislation and the economics which are around those legislations. Those become very important. In fact, I've been talking about partners, right? But partners are also a lot more important in other contexts because they know, the local laws and regulations much better. In fact, one of the things that we've seen is if some of these particular regulations can change very often, it's a better idea to use partners for taking care of some of those. I'll give an example, and I'll give an example from SAP Ariba. You roll it across a couple of hundred countries. Taxation, for example, across those particular countries will be very different. The way that you invoice will be very different, and these change. Now the question is that a core competence of mine? Right? Maybe no. I want to enable digital commerce. I want to enable B2B commerce. Maybe taxation is not necessarily my core competence, right? But it's required by legislation. So what do? You actually partner with a company which can provide these particular things, right? And you integrate with that particular system, right? So you work with partners to create these competencies, and you assimilate those into your ecosystem. Now, the good thing that happens is when you work with these particular partners, they become invested in your product. So now they are also selling your product because by way of doing that, they're also selling their product, right? So the overall ecosystem that grows. The downside, you have to make sure that you're doing third-party risk management, right? You have to be aware of what is it, that could fall through cracks. You have to manage that. You need to make sure, to the extent, what is your legal binding vis-a-vis what is the partners' legal binding, and are they complying with that? A bunch of those particular things, right? So you have to be on top of that. You have to bring in legal for doing a bunch of things. I'm not really an expert, but as I said, the dynamics of how you do business, what is it that you create within the product, and what is it that you co-create with others or leave to the others, that becomes different. Right? In fact, there have been cases where, for example, with SAP Ariba, I think we partnered with IFSS for doing a bunch of tax. So we used to send a transaction to them. They used to provide all the tax lines and the invoices, and then we just used to integrate with that and roll it out. Doing it ourselves, and we tried that for a certain period, and maybe we still have a bunch of those things, was very hard, right? Because you can't just be on top of everything, right? So that is one thing. The other thing, and this is very important, people always talk about globalization, right, and the regulatory context. One thing that people miss out is deglobalization, right? And that's one thing which is very real. Given the geopolitical tensions that are there, right? For example, you've got the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, when that happened, the US and the other countries severed ties from Russia, right? And they imposed sanctions. Now, as part of imposing sanctions, one of the things that they did was they cut them off from the SWIFT network, which was for enabling, these larger cross-border transactions. And, MasterCard as well as Visa also had to pull out from that particular region. Now, this could have left Russia crippled financially because if they depended only on our networks for doing this, the domestic transactions would also not have worked, right? How would people transact digitally? There would have been no way. The good thing is that they had their own network called NSPK. And when people are seeing this, right, every one of them is, are looking at it from the perspective and saying, if this happens to me, can my economy be crippled by decisions which are taken outside, right? Or should I be able to control my own destiny? So a whole set of countries are looking at de-globalization rather than globalization, right? China, India. India, I mean, if you take an example, the UPI network that has been created or the RUPay network are basically replies to exactly this particular dynamic, right? They want to own their own destinies. They don't want to be dependent on somebody outside for some of these critical things, right? Now, if you are operating within that critical context, like Visa does, right, or a very large B2B or e-commerce company could operate in that context, you have to be aware that this is something that you'll have to contend with, right? How do you do that? And sometimes it's just competition, right? Like for example, right now UPI might be competition for Visa, right? The RUPay network would be competition for Visa. The question is, do you say, "Oh, it's competition. I don't want to work with it, and maybe I'll go somewhere else," or maybe you assimilate even that particular competition within your network, right? Can I interoperate with that? Can I work with them? Like, for example, Visa right now works with MasterCard transactions, right? You can swipe a MasterCard card at a terminal and it can get routed through Visa's network and vice versa as well, right? So sometimes you need to look at assimilating that. And maybe if there are geopolitical tensions at that point of time, maybe that gets severed, but then the impact is very different, right? And maybe even countries are okay with that. So that's one key constraint, right, that people should be aware of.
Thanks.
And finally, yeah.
I think I'll also
So
try to get views from Abhijeet because he comes from different
absolutely.
industry, right? So let's hear from him. How important is regulations and compliance for him?
Sure, absolutely right. So I think what, in my opinion, like for example, Rakuten is also in the mobile business, right? And as I think we also heard that the data infrastructure, in case of let's say data residency requirements, needs to be localized. The biggest impact I think that has for the product or the product manager is on the business case, right, or on the growth plans, because the fact that when we create a business case, we talk about expansions. We are in one geography, we'll go to another geography, and there are these projections that get made in terms of number of customers, in terms of number of adoption, etc. But there is an equally important nuance about the cost also kind of going up, and in some cases the cost of expanding to a particular geography, the cost of going to a particular customer segment may not be worth it because of the additional burden of regulation. So while of course we do talk about how do we overcome regulation, I think product managers or companies also need to take the hard decision of where are they abstaining from, right? If compliance to regulation costs way more than the returns that the company is generating from selling the product, then you need to kind of take the call saying, look guys, we are not doing this because this is not worth it, or maybe this is just too difficult a place to do business in. And I think with I think every now and then India gets called out for that, right? India is not like a great place to do business. Of course, with respect to data, India is coming up with its own data privacy rules, and a lot of companies are on the edge, right? Like especially the social media companies, and Gore quite eloquently talked about the impact on the banking and the payment space, so I won't go there. But of course there is a lot more personal private data that's floating around on the internet, and I completely agree. I mean, every country needs to safeguard their own data and do what is best in the sovereign interest. But I think as organizations, as companies, we need to be mindful about whether we want to go there or not, whether the cost of compliance is worth it or not, and try to think of these scenarios in advance. So it shouldn't be a case where the expansion happens and then all of a sudden we are hit with this roadblock, and that's not really good planning or good strategy in my mind. So I think those are my 2 cents on this.
Thanks, Abhijeet. I know we are running out of time, but I want to end this session with one another important and interesting topic for all, right? It's about people and collaboration, right? So without touching this topic, I think we should not end this session. There are lots of challenges and opportunities, right, when you collaborate in the global context. So I'd like to discuss and get answers from all of you very briefly about your views on this particular topic. Who would like to start? I would like to start with Abhijit again.
Okay, sure. So I think what I have seen, or what we've seen in Rakuten's context, which is a super global organization, right? And it's an organization which has grown inorganically as well. We have a large number of acquisitions that we've done. Of course, there are core businesses which are APAC focused, but there is a lot of business that Rakuten does in, let's say, Europe, in the US, and so on. And of course, stakeholder management, working with partners, teams, departments, etc., kind of continues to be a big challenge. But what I've seen is, the under communication in all of these aspects is a big challenge, right? Like, we may have a plan, we may have an initiative, and all that initiatives, like we have it by heart, right? Like we know, this quarter I'll do this, next quarter I'll do that, and I'll be ready. But that's definitely not the case with our stakeholders, right? And of course, always in a global organization, you need to work with people, you need to take the help of others. You cannot just do everything on your own. So the idea is that how do we over communicate, err on the side of caution when it comes to communication with stakeholders, right? It's get to the stakeholders in 2 to 3 separate forums or whatever, get to them where they are. It's very similar to advertising, right? Like it's like your stakeholders need to understand what you want. So you need to go to where they are, which place, which language, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, right? So just figure out a way to over communicate, keep on communicating, because I sent out that email, or I had an announcement, I had like a kickoff meeting. No, that's not the end of it, right? You just need to keep hammering what do you want, what are you planning for, and what do you want from them, more importantly, right? Many of the times people read something and they're like, yeah, okay, just another informational email, let me move to something else, right? But they need to kind of take the key takeaway that you need to drive from all this communication is, from your stakeholders, are they clear what you need from them, right? So I think over communication is underrated, I would say. And I think it's always good to do more communication. It's okay to people start talking about the over communication that they have done, that you've done, rather than they coming back and saying, oh, you are running this interesting initiative, I would have loved to contribute, but I was never aware. Or people are not clear about what they're supposed to do, and then they don't end up doing what you want them to do, and your plans are compromised. So I think this under communication is like the first challenge that we need to ensure that we cover by ensuring, as I said, something like advertising sort of an outlook. um, Second is, once you do get to your stakeholders, right, and you do tell them what you want from them, you need to ensure that there is clear alignment, right? I mean, of course, just the understanding what you want from them is maybe not good enough, right? You need to kind of convince that what's in it for me, sort of a thing, right? I mean, maybe it's a convince them about a shared vision. Maybe it positively impacts some of their KPIs that are there. Maybe you just want to ensure that there's a clear division of roles and responsibilities, so that they know that, oh, I'm supposed to do this, you will be doing the remaining part, and how do we kind of works together. So we just need to ensure that they are super clear about what's in it for them, what are they supposed to do, and what outcomes do they drive from it, right? I mean, is there something in it for them? It sounds a very crude way, or it sounds a very transactional way, but clearly each of our stakeholders have only so much of an attention span, so much of a bandwidth. So we need to really convince them, get them on board, and get our activities in their priority list. And that can happen only via this incentive alignment, ensuring that they are super clear about what's in it for them. In some cases, the stakeholders are duty bound, right? Like some of the shared services and all. But just because someone is supposed to do something, and if they do it as a formality, it doesn't really drive the impact, right? You need to kind of get them wholeheartedly involved, convinced into what you're doing, convinced into the vision, convinced into the bigger picture. That just gives you that better leverage to work with them, that makes them feel more involved, and they can also call out challenges, problems that may help you in the long term.
Thanks.
And the last one, sorry, just like 30 seconds. The last one is on the speed of execution, right? Like the moment you have global stakeholders, I think the speed of execution goes for a toss. And this is like a drawback of globalization, if you ask me, right? Clearly, the globalized workforce brings a lot of benefits, but I think the agility, the speed is a bit of a challenge in this. So do what you need to do in terms of ensuring that your global stakeholders are aware of you. Face-to-face meetings. I know we are in the era of Zoom, but don't think face-to-face meetings, in personal interactions can never be underrated. Ensure that you bond with your stakeholders, form that professional relationship, so that the as I said, the leverage is there, and the bond of working together is that much stronger, which of course is a key contributor to the success, or the semi-success of any initiative. So that's what I wanted to share about the stakeholder management topic.
Sure, thanks, Abhijeet. Arti, I'd like to hear from you. Do you still have challenges with the
Um,
collaboration and interacting with different stakeholders?
Oh, absolutely. Right. And Abhijit covered it extremely well. Right. Very well articulated on this one. Communication is the key. Have you established communication protocols between yourself and the stakeholders and the different levels of stakeholders, right? Internal, external, and your leadership, right? All the three of them have to be equally communicated to, and over communication is never a problem for sure, right? But are you also conscious on what is needed by each of these stakeholders, right? In your engineers, your design team, your marketing, your sales, your internal stakeholders, your leaders who need updates on where the milestones have been reached. How are you in alignment with the success metrics? What are the risks and challenges as you move towards achieving whatever your goals are for the year? Is also as important, right? Being aware of what is it that each of these stakeholder needs to hear from you is also something that you need to be aware of. That is one, I think, something just I would like to call out as part of, in addition to what Abhijit has just added, right? There is definitely, as a global team, there are going to be time zone differences, there are going to be cultural differences, and there are going to be language barriers, right? Because you are dealing with teams which are distributed in Southeast Asia to North America to Europe, right? Every place has its own a distribution of internal, external, and leaders. So how do you make sure that you are able to overcome all of this while you have your regular cadence, your regular updates, is a big question. What helps me is, one, being aware of what are the sets of information each of them want, right, globally. The second is, what is it specifically that individual or the groups of teams that you are working with also needs, right? This my when I started on my journey as a product manager, I used to check with my manager as well as my mentors on what would be the right sets of information that needs to be shared. What I also learned is go and directly reach out to the stakeholder and ask them what you want to hear from me on a regular basis. Right? So once you ask that, you will also have a set pattern and a set, clear, specific information that is being shared with that stakeholders that makes them more effective, right? Because the assumption is, as a product manager, you have communicated your product strategy already, that everyone is on the same page with regards to product strategy. That is crucial. That is like table stakes. You cannot get away with that, right? Post that, what is the information that needs to be there? What are the milestones and metrics that each of these stakeholders needs to hear from you is also important. And having that established as a communication channel or a protocol will always help in bridging a lot of gaps that you would see. It's basically a trust building exercise at the end of the day.
Yeah, thanks, Arti. So I'll move to Gur and then to Joy to close the topic. Maybe you could just share a couple of points about the stakeholders and if you really have challenges even today.
Yeah, I'll try and be brief, and as I said, always offer complementary information.
Yeah.
We touched upon communication as well as alignment, right? Those are the two key things. Absolutely clear. But communication in the global context, right? And what was mentioned earlier was it's good to have face-to-face connects. But the problem is you cannot have that with everybody at the same time, right? So you have to lean towards asynchronous communication, right? Even if there is synchronous communication, even if there is a meeting with somebody, you have to broadcast those decision records asynchronously to everybody so that everybody is aligned or knows what really is happening, right? So that's one. Second, you have to have accountability and people who need to be consulted. So for anything, you basically need to say this is the person who's accountable and these are the set of people who have to be consulted for something. And then there have to be literally like SLAs in which people need to respond back, right? If you don't have that discipline, things start falling apart. It just starts creating a lot of delays, right? You have to have that discipline. Plus, one key implication is that your planning horizon sometimes gets reduced. right? People used to talk about annual planning or quarterly planning. Maybe that gets reduced, and during that particular time, during that compressed planning period, you actually have synchronization points with other teams wherever you have dependencies, and you can basically then do trade-offs. What is it that should be done now, or can certain things be done later? Right, those synchronization points, as I said, they need to be very well managed, and that planning horizon usually becomes smaller in certain cases, especially for those synchronization events. Right? That is something that helps. You will always have challenges. As I said, alignment and communication is key. One last thing with regard to alignment, it has to align across, right? Which is when Arti was talking about, how do you say that this actually aligns with your part as well, right? Whatever I'm doing. So all of that needs to come together, and that some of that needs to come from top down.
Thanks. On to
Yeah,
Joy.
I will not take more than a minute. I'll quickly share 3 points. One, the co-location definitely helps. So in a team of product engineering, design, content, having in the same location makes it very efficient in terms of solving a problem, brainstorming, whiteboarding, and making decision quicker, right? However, it is not ideal. Sometimes you can have one team here, but there are dependence teams across the zone, right? Across the time zones. Then regular connects. Again, regular connects has its own limitations because of the time overlaps. And regular connects cannot solve everything, right? But at least you can discuss high level touch points, you can discuss your plans, progress, etc. And third is the synchronous communication, which Gur said. It is very important, be it Slack, be it Zoom, be it Teams, whatever be the mechanism, be it Teams channels, Slack channels, asynchronous communication, one-to-one, one-to-many, across the teams, within the teams, across the time zones are very important. I mean, in the end, companies are all very complex scenarios, right? Their organization structures are complex. Breaking through that is very important. Communication is key. Tools enabling communications has to be adopted. They have to be respected, and every team has to kind of come together to make that happen. Yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Joy, for your views. I think we are done with this session for the discussions. We have many questions posted in the Q&A. Probably I'll
Yeah.
just ask one or two and then we'll try to close this session with that. Right? So, yeah. So one important question that I got is that how do you assess all the rules and regulations and compliances as a product manager before we enter into a new market? Apart from Googling and ChatGPT is a question. Is there any other way to find this? Question is open.
Oh, yeah, one of the things that you could look at is, usually whatever you're doing, it may not be 100% new, right? So you can look at what are others doing, right? You can actually ask around. So that's one way. There may be certain cases where whatever you're doing is so new that even governments may not be aware of that, or maybe there are no regulations around that, but you think that there may be, right? Like for example, whatever is happening on the generative AI side, some of that is so new that there is no regulations, but people, even legislators, they're looking at very, very closely on those aspects. In some cases, you have to actually educate governments on that, saying this is something which is absolutely new and this is how we are planning to deal with it. Right? Like when there's generative AI and there is content which is coming in, how do you attribute that content to somebody, and then how do you compensate them for them if it's licensable, etc. Right? Those kinds of things. So that's another way. Uh, I mean, there's no simple way, right? You have to check. That's my view.
Yeah.
Others?
The third aspect that I would call out, like Gur mentioned, is the agent mentality, right? So typically, if you are launching in a new market, you would find one or two experienced consultants in that market who are familiar with the regulatory requirements. Right? So these are experts in that specific domain whom you should be tapping into, especially considering that you are launching into a new market. right? They can be a channel partner of yours. It can be a consultant who is established in that specific space. It could be a, I don't know, an academic professor who is established in that particular place, right? But this is another aspect that I would recommend tapping into if you are looking at a new market.
Sure. Then I think
I
we're
think
done.
we are running out of time.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was a very, wonderful session, insightful session for us. And I want to say a big thank you to all the leaders and, everyone for being here today. And thank you once again for this. And you will get the recording link in our, NASCOM YouTube channel within 3 working days. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Awesome.
for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you all.
everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye
All the
bye.
best.